Wow. That's something, man. Jeez. Okay, so I guess how much would you say on average does it even cost to go through the entire process of a lawsuit? Because I've heard different accounts, but I just kind of want to hear from you. I know when I spoke to my lawyer specifically, back when me Kevin threatened to sue me, my lawyer told me it probably cost about 100K just to get to the part where the judge can throw the case out. That's what I was told.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting, that last caveat that you added. So
Yeah.
almost all litigation when it comes to defamation is not going to be litigated all the way to the end. Very, very few cases, because remember that the petitioner, their primary purpose is to get the content removed and then also kind of neutralize you and eliminate you as a threat, someone that they perceive to be as a threat. Now, again, going back to what I was saying before, I wholeheartedly believe that a lot of the cases are filed based upon ego. Like, had Ross Cameron or Raging Bull, reached out to me and then we had spoken privately, I can almost guarantee you that I would have removed the video. Now, yes, I completely made a mistake by not removing the video or not speaking to their attorneys.
Mhm.
After receiving a cease and desist letter, that was just ignorance on my part, 100%. But I really believe that instead of thinking that if you're a plaintiff and you've been defamed and you're watching this, instead of thinking that you're gonna go after and you're gonna ruin the other guy, remember that litigation is extremely expensive, and I'll get into the cost in a second. You're way better off just simply sending an email or or picking up the phone and speaking to that person, because from my experience, like some of the people who I thought didn't like me, um, or that maybe I thought that I wouldn't really have anything in common with them, by simply communicating with them and by getting on the phone with them and speaking, some of those people who I was under the impression that I wouldn't get along with, I actually have become friends with. So
Mm.
I think that by you can just talk to them, and then you can put your differences aside, and it should be fine. In a lot of the cases where people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, they don't actually speak to, the plaintiff doesn't speak directly to the defendant to get their sides, and there's always two sides to every story. Now, regarding cost, um, okay, as I said before, very few cases are brought to the end where it's either decided by a jury or a bench trial for a judge. I think that it really depends how many motions you're going to do. Like, basically, if a complaint is filed, then usually I think that the best thing to do is to immediately start discovery. So you would hit them with like interrogatories, which are questions, requests for admissions, and then also like requests for production of documents. Now, usually, especially if the case is frivolous, then they're not going to want to produce that. So then they're going to drag their heels, and then you're going to have to like file a motion to compel. Generally speaking, after a complaint is filed, then the defendant is going to file either like a motion to strike or a motion to dismiss. In federal court, it's called something like a 12b6 motion. And from my experience, usually like some of the claims will be like relatively similar, like something like false light. They'll claim like false light and also like defamation, like things which have like some overlap. So you can potentially ask the judge to get them thrown out. Or additionally, maybe the plaintiff's attorney will file something which is very generic, like a very generic complaint, without explicitly indicating, specifically indicating like in the complaint where, like what was exactly said that was defamatory. Or maybe the plaintiff won't actually be able to prove damages, and therefore there won't be like a strong enough cause of action. Or maybe it's procedural, where maybe in Florida, I know that they have to serve you with a cease and desist letter to give you an opportunity to actually change or modify or delete the behavior before they can file a lawsuit. Now, it's funny, you would think that because it's in the procedural code, that therefore anything that doesn't follow that procedure is going to be dismissed. But I've had at least one, potentially two, where they didn't no, it was one, where they didn't bother to file a cease and desist letter, or they didn't bother to serve me with that. But the judge, even though we put that in the motion to dismiss, the judge still allowed it to move forward. So depending upon how active you are, and I definitely think it's in your best interest, especially as a defendant, to be very aggressive in filing motions and also to get discovery. I think you're looking at anywhere from $100,000 or $150,000, depending upon how, just to get to like the pre-trial basis where you guys have completed discovery and you finished motion practice. Maybe even more. Like it could potentially be like 150 to 200, depending upon how many depositions you're doing, how many subpoenas you're sending out, whether there's like motion to quash, even small things like whether the judge is going to allow whether the judge is going to allow oral arguments during motions, because if there are oral arguments, then your attorney has to prepare, and oftentimes they might have to commute to the courthouse. So that's going to add like a few $1,000s for every single motion. So it really depends on numerous factors. But I would say a good number would be about, not good, but I would say like an average number, the median number would probably be about $150,000. But remember, it cuts both ways. It's $150,000 for the defendant and $150,000 for the plaintiff. And as we've said, the only guaranteed winner during a litigation is the attorney. So the plaintiff shouldn't necessarily want to, move forward with a lawsuit and just throw money out when they could, in most situations, just speak directly to the person that they believe has defamed them, and then get it taken care of.
Nice. I remember when we were communicating during email, you said something very interesting. I'm trying to remember it. You said something about there's like two types of people who sue you. It was something about one person tries to bully you, and then somebody else. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember?
Yeah. I think I said that there are two types of plaintiffs in defamation cases. The first is the plaintiff is in the right and they have a lot of money. That's the first person. So the person's in the right, they have legitimately been defamed and they have a legitimate case, and they have enough money to get their quote unquote problem taken care of. The second, which is something that unfortunately does happen a lot, it's the plaintiff is in the wrong, has a lot of money, but perceives that they could bully the defendant, even though they're wrong, into a settlement or into getting the content taken down. And especially when it comes to like civil litigation, I know that many people, and I thought the same way. I thought, oh, well, I have evidence that what I said was correct, and therefore it wasn't defamation. It doesn't really matter, because unless you're able to put it in the proper format, and remember, like, judges aren't going to necessarily respect you because they're going, maybe they've seen the attorney on the other side like appear before them like 15 or 20 times, and that the attorney has also gone to like law school, and they might have a personal relationship with a judge, etc. So, and even if you weren't biased, as a non-lawyer, you wouldn't know how to craft responses. You would have no idea about how how the procedural system works and things like that. So yeah, unfortunately, it does happen a lot where a plaintiff might be in the wrong, but they just want to silence any potential criticism, so they'll go after someone that they believe that they could potentially bully.
Yeah. Interesting. And I guess I would ask this. Do you think, I guess I'll ask two questions. How many times would you say you've seen that happen where they specifically go after people to bully? And do you think that specifically happened to you with your lawsuit?
That's a really good question. Okay. So for me, I think that I was wrong. So even though I had a good outcome, I think that the video, so right now, okay, so it's very interesting because I don't do like fake guru videos anymore. Maybe I'll put like one out a year. If it's just so egregious and so incredibly obvious, then maybe I might feel like I just feel like, okay, I want to do it, but I don't do it anymore. And I could do it very easily because I could defend myself for for the third case. it was so bad for the plaintiff. Like they sued me, and then and this was when like my team had already been set up. They basically lost every single hearing, and we filed a federal case against them for Lanham Act to the point where they basically begged us to settle the case. So, but I don't take it lightly in any way to realize that I appreciate how lucky I am to have those friends. So I'm not going to like make a video, just to make it, because I just, it's just I don't want to deal with that negativity. The other thing is, I think, to answer your question directly, I think that the videos that I put out about Raging Bull and Warrior Trading, the language that I used was too strong. And I think that it was very ignorant and stupid of me to put that out. Like it just, the video, it just wasn't, I don't think it was worthwhile. Regarding other, so do I think that that it was a frivolous case? No, I don't think it was a frivolous case because I wasn't careful in the words that I used. And, I made a lot of mistakes. And even though I got a very positive outcome, where it didn't like cost me any money or anything like that, it still, it could have probably in like 95 out of 100 cases. You do have to be careful what you say because you're not going to get bailed out. So I feel very fortunate about that. Now, regarding what you were saying, do I think that happens a lot where people file frivolous cases just to bully the defendant? I do think it happens a lot. I really do. Yeah, I think it happens a lot because if you have, let's say, I saw something about CoffeeZilla with like Kevin David and things like that. If you have someone who's making like millions of dollars a year, and then say you proactively reach out to that person, and that person like blows you off, and you're unable to like come to an agreement. Now, in my experience, most people don't reach out. Like the actual person rarely like reaches out and tries to like tries to handle things amongst themselves. But I mean, yeah, I think it happens a lot, especially because many people, they just don't have the ability to defend themselves and to spend that type of money to get something, to defend themselves. I think it happens a lot.
Nice. I want to say something else. We'll talk about Spencer soon, but I wanted to talk about this. I don't know if this is something that happened in 2018, 2019, because I'm new to this space. I know people like Spencer, Cornelia, and CoffeeZilla were doing their thing in terms of talking about scams and bad actors in finance back in like 2019 and 2018. I guess my question is, for me, it feels like the threat of lawsuits is higher now than ever before. You had Logan Paul threatening to sue CoffeeZilla. He ended up not doing it. Spencer's being sued right now. I've been threatened to be sued. I think Scott Schaefer had some risk of being sued too. The guy who exposed established titles, he had some risk too, which is why he got insurance. And I guess my question would be, why do you think the risk of being sued has gone up, or do you think it's gone up at all? Because for me personally, it feels like the risk of people like us being sued is higher than ever. What do you think?
I actually respectfully disagree. I think that the reason why I haven't been sued again is based upon what happened with, the people who sued me, and then the FTC launching lawsuits against them, and then additionally with the other person just completely getting beat down and then countersued. So I think that once, as I said before, most of the cases, or a decent, even if it's 50% of the cases, are going to be frivolous. I definitely do not believe that CoffeeZilla would be sued for the primary reason that he has so much goodwill built up in the community that it really, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily make sense for him to have insurance. And I know that might sound blasphemous, but like, hear me out for a second. Remember that insurance companies, they make money by collecting your premium. They don't make money by paying out claims. It's very similar to if there's been like a hurricane or an earthquake. I'm sure that you can Google like insurance insurance payouts like during those hurricanes. And in fact, even today on Google, I saw something where there was a hurricane in Florida and people are very upset about the payouts and they're getting stiffed by their insurance company. So, and then there might be like other contingencies in there where if the court finds that you made the remarks with like negligence, then maybe they're not going to cover you at all, or maybe, you know, maybe they're not going to support you. Like, you just don't know. You have to read the policy very quickly. But insurance companies, I think that Stephen from CoffeeZilla is actually potentially at risk, because the insurance company, they're going to hire the attorney and they might pressure the attorney to settle the case from the very beginning at less than advantageous terms. And I think that that's a big risk. And I think that someone like CoffeeZilla, who has a huge audience, he could easily raise donations. I believe that he, you know, he's probably relatively wealthy, and he deserves it because he's done an amazing job and he has a very valuable channel. Like, money isn't bad. You know, it's just that money accentuates the person that you are at your core. So if you're a good person, then you can do more good with money because you have more ability. If you're a bad person and you have like sociopathic tendencies, or you want to take advantage of people, then having money just gives you more ability to do that. So I think that with Stephen, one, the fact that I haven't seen any videos from him that I perceived to be, you know, defamatory. You know, he's very well researched, and you know, he always mentions things like alleged or like in my opinion, etc. But I also think that it's actually a risk for him to get insurance, because if he gets a bad lawyer, then that could severely cripple his case. And I'm sure that people would donate to him for his like GoFundMe in order to raise the necessary funds to defend himself. But regarding what you were saying about the risk being higher now, I don't think it's higher. I think that basically, if they sue you and if you believe that the case is frivolous, then the reason why they've initiated that case is because they believe that you're unable to defend yourself. And if you show that you are able to defend yourself, then you're not going to be a target anymore. And I think that that's one of the issues. And you know, just to briefly, and then we can get more into the Spencer Cornelia case later. But I think that Spencer is actually making a big mistake, because I read one of his comments under your video where it said something like, "Oh, it's destroying my life," and then he mentioned that if they sued you, like, you would have to prove that you did it without malice. Like, that's actually incorrect. Like,
oh yeah, he told me that if Masterworks sued me, he was talking about Masterworks could sue me and they'd win and all that. Yeah,
I mean, that's not true. Like with well, I mean, again, like, I'm only referring to like his specific comment. So in his comment, he said that you would have to show that you made the claims, or you made the statements without malice. Well, malice only comes into play if the person is a public figure or a limited person public figure. So someone like Logan Paul, who's kind of like a celebrity, or someone who might be like have a huge audience within their specific niche, you can then ask the judge to label them or to establish them as a limited person public figure, because maybe they have like 1 million followers or 1 million subscribers on YouTube in like the day trading space. So therefore, if the judge believes that they're an authority or they're like a limited purpose public figure, then the plaintiff, so not you as a defendant, the plaintiff actually has a higher ground to prove that your statements are actually defamatory. They would have to prove that what you said was made with malice. So, and Masterworks is a company. It's not, you know, a public figure or anything like that. So, I mean, he was off about that. But the other thing is, I think that with Spencer, by him saying that, and I went through the docket, and I actually don't believe that his case is that the case against him is frivolous at all. Now, going back to what I said before, I think it's important when looking at people to look at their intentions. And I truly believe that Spencer is a good person with good intentions. I know that he made some mistakes with FTX, and he probably felt, I've never spoken to him, so I don't know him, but you know, he's probably friends with those people from FTX. And I think
Mhm.
he was part of like that agency, creators agency, where his friends
Yeah.
that he can't say anything bad about them.
Yeah.
So my gut feeling is he probably felt incredibly conflicted. And I'm not saying that people should like give him a pass or anything like that. But what I am saying is that it's really important not to like label people like black, like black and white, like good or bad. Like there's a gray area. And look at the total body of work. I think like Tupac said something where he said like that he wants to be judged by his actions fully. So don't just take like a moment in time where Tupac was like put in prison by like and he said something to the judge and the judge wouldn't even like look at him, and he was put into like Clinton Correctional Facility. Like you
Yep.
don't want to judge, or someone like Mike Tyson where his daughter died in from like the treadmill accident, and then he spent time in prison, but he's rehabbed his image and he's a very, very valuable member of society. So I think that it's very important not to judge someone just by like by like their worst times. And I think that with Spencer, overall, I do feel for him because I think that he's a valuable member of the community, and I think that he means well. But just because you mean well doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect. It's human to make a lot of mistakes. Nobody's perfect,
Yeah.
and if you think that, then you just you just don't know about like the other things that they've done where they were fortunate where they never got in trouble. But I think that Spencer, in my opinion, what he's doing wrong is I think that by writing stuff like, "Oh, it ruined my life," um, then that really like makes him a bigger target because if I'm reading that, then many other people are reading that, and he has people that don't like him because he made videos about them. And the worst thing that could possibly happen is that he is sued and then he loses. Because if that happens, then I mean, it makes him a big target in the future.
Interesting.
And
That's yeah. Go ahead.
and the problem with him, with his case, is that it's actually not frivolous. I spent like 2 hours yesterday, like going through the docket, just because I was curious. And what happened was the person that he had on his show, they explicitly said that guy Derek Moneyberg from like maybe he worked at like Real Social Dynamics or something. But there
Mhm.
were two things that really stuck out. I guess like maybe two and a half. The first was that the person claimed that Derek Moneyberg, and that's not his name, but I don't remember his name, like Dale
I
something.
can tell you. Yeah, it's Dale Buchowski is his real name.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they claimed that he didn't graduate from the Chicago Booth of Business. Like I think it's like an MBA program from University of Chicago. And then the second thing that they claimed, and I believe they claimed this numerous times, was that Dale or Derek Moneyberg was like that he was arrested multiple times for like running a drug house in and those type of things, they actually are like pretty black and white where it's either true or it's false. Like you either graduated from you got your MBA from University of Chicago, which I believe is almost true. I didn't look at the exhibits of the complaint, but it said in the exhibits in the initial complaint that they had like attached some evidence like of his diploma or something. So that was completely false. And then additionally, like anyone can say that like this person was arrested, like now with like fake news and everything, but like there's a record of it if
Mhm.
you were arrested or not, and he wasn't arrested. So those two things, as long as he's able to show specifically that those claims, and I think that there were like 4 or 5 like causes of action or complaints in there, but those two things like stuck out to me. And as long as Dale is able to show that one that they were wrong, and that they were untruthful, and that also that it hurt his business, then he has a legitimate claim. The other thing which did stick out was I think Spencer made a comment, whether it be on like Instagram DMs or maybe it was in one of his videos, where he said something like that he doesn't like Dale, or like that he nominated him for like the fake guru of the year, like something like that. That's not going to look good in front of a judge or in front of a jury, because it shows that like not only did he allow like this false information to be disseminated on his channel, but at the same time, it might seem like Spencer Cornelia has like a personal vendetta against this person. And, even though he's probably not going to have to show malice. It's not going to help his case, because it's going to make it look like that he was targeting this guy.
Wow. I just want to say, man, that was excellent. That was very insightful. You really just taught me a lot. You taught a lot of people a lot, and I appreciate that. How did you access the docket? I found some free sources online, but it sounds like you really like went through the source. Did you actually pay like the money to get it?
Okay, so here's an interesting. Well, okay, two caveats, and one caveat, and then we'll go to like how to access it. So the first thing is, I'm not. I want to be clear that I'm not defending Moneyberg. I don't think he's a good person. Okay, like I actually believe, as I mentioned before, I believe that Spencer is a good person who has made mistakes, and I think that long term Spencer is going to be fine. Okay, I'm just looking at it from like a legal perspective based upon, from my cases, like appearing in front of the judge, et cetera, how they're going to look at things, and obviously it depends upon which judge they get, et cetera, or, which judge is litigating this. The other thing regarding your question, so you can go to pacer.gov, and then I think that there's something called like case locator. And then in there should be something under that says like party search. And in there you can put like Cornelia and then Spencer, and then you can search for the federal case. Now, Pacer is only for federal cases. If you want state cases, then you have to go to like the online court system of the local jurisdiction. But Pacer is amazing for federal cases. Regarding paying money, I think Pacer allows you $30 every single quarter for free. So it's going to show you that it's billing you. But as long as you don't, and I think it's like 10 cents a page, as long as you don't spend more than $30 every 3 months, then you can download the files, and then it'll reset after 3 months. So so you don't have to pay anything.
Okay.
Oh, and then another really, really interesting thing on Spencer's case is, and again, I didn't go through like all the docket because it's very, very long. I mean, when he said,
there's a lot of motions and stuff. There's a lot. Yeah. It's been 2 years. Yep.
When he said that it was 250,000, I believe him, because it looks like 250,000. So he actually filed, or no, I believe that he agreed to like a joint protection order with the opposing party. And let me tell you why this is very relevant, and also let me tell you why I believe this is one reason why parties should just talk to themselves and also be very careful about making these type of videos. Spencer probably thought when he was making the video that he's going to get like a lot of views and that his probability of getting sued, etc., is going to be very low. Maybe he got a cease and desist letter, maybe he ignored it. I'm sure that there was an opportunity to settle the case from the beginning, or at least like pretty close. I mean, I have no inside knowledge of it, like pretty early on, because Moneyberg, I'm sure, doesn't want to spend $150,000, and the case is up in the air. He also doesn't want to go through the discovery process, which I'm sure that he has things to hide as well. So nobody wants to go through that process. So for some reason, the case wasn't settled. But there was a joint motion where they agreed to a protective order. And the language of the protective order doesn't just extend to the existing litigation. Rather, it's a permanent protection order. So the things that are produced in discovery, they explicitly wrote in the protection order that Spencer is not even going to see many of those documents, because they're just going to label it confidential for attorney's eyes only, and those documents can never be passed on to Spencer. So Spencer probably thought that, okay, worst case scenario, I get sued, then I'll be able to obtain all these documents and I'll be able to do damage to this guy. But the reality is that that's not how it played out. And my gut feeling on why and I believe it was a joint protective order, but I believe that the reason why Spencer agreed to that is because his case is not nearly as strong as he's kind of like portraying it. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't really watch much of his content, but I believe he's kind of portraying it as saying that he's been sued by like a fake guru and it's a frivolous case. But from me reading
Yeah.
it, that's not true in my opinion. Like, I don't believe it's frivolous. And also, if he truly believed that, then he's not going to sign a joint protective order, because he wouldn't have to, like, he would just say, okay, like, you can, he could just tell them, all right, you're welcome to petition the judge and then ask for a protective order, but it's not something that I'm going to voluntarily agree to. Those are just my thoughts. I could be way off, and maybe if he's watching this, I'm not saying I don't have any inside knowledge, so you probably know more than I do. But in general, if you have a lot of leverage in the case, then you're not going to voluntarily sign that if that's actually what he did, because it kind of defeats the purpose of you deciding to litigate the case anyway, because even if you win, you're not going to be able to disclose any information that you received in discovery.
Yeah, just based on my conversations with Spencer, I just can't imagine a situation where he had a chance to settle or talk things out and he didn't. I think the Dale guy is so upset with him, and this is just me speculating, I don't know, but just speculating, I think he probably didn't want to talk to Spencer's. Oh, actually, no. You know what? Spencer did say it publicly. I think it was on Graham Stephan's channel, The Guys Coffee Hour. I think Spencer did say that he reached out to Dale. I think he did. He reached out to Dale, and he got like an automated message. This is what Spencer said publicly, by the way. But yeah, he said like he got like an automated message like, hey, sign up for my whatever. So I guess he wasn't able to get in contact with him, I guess. And just based on my conversations with him, I wouldn't be surprised if Dale didn't want to settle. He wanted to take the thing the whole way through, because Dale does have money.
That I've heard of that happening a few times, actually. It's where it's kind of like the scorn lover, so to speak, and just people are so angry, and their feelings are hurt so much where they just want to like destroy the other person. I probably had that happen to me, but what really happens is, if the person doesn't listen, then if you litigate the case well, then they're going to be forced to listen, because they're not going to have a choice. Like, initially, when you're engaged in a lawsuit, the plaintiff will always have the advantage, because even if you file like a motion to dismiss, the judge has to weigh the claims in the motion to dismiss in the light that's most favorable to the plaintiff. So it's pretty rare, unless it's something where like it's outside the statute of limitations or something, or it's like cut and dry, that the judge is going to grant a 12b6 or a motion to dismiss. But if I was Spencer, and I know that once lawyers are engaged, you kind of like, you can't really like reach out to the other party. I mean, I guess you could reach out to Dale, even though they have attorneys, but it's kind of like bad form to do that. But I would have just lawsuits have a tendency to waver and like vacillate. Like, the plaintiff has the edge in the beginning, and then maybe they file for like a TRO, and then if they lose that hearing, then the defendant has like a tremendous amount of leverage, and then maybe the defendant will then file like a countersuit or a counterclaim against like the plaintiff. I think that there comes a time where everyone wants to stop litigating, because it's very stressful, it's very expensive, and it takes up a lot of time, where we're productive people, and Spencer could have spent a lot more time, focusing on real estate, focusing on YouTube, and I'm sure that Dale could have done the same thing. So there comes a time, even in the beginning, if they're not open, where they're just angry, where their anger is going to be mollified and soothed a little bit, and then it might be best for Spencer to reach out to him directly, because hey, some attorneys are super shady. Like, some of them, they don't want you to settle because you're their meal ticket, and sometimes those clients that they can definitely get a piece of content removed, that the probability is like 95%, and it's only going to cost them like $20,000. Next thing they know, they've spent over $100,000, nothing's got removed, and they're looking at a counterclaim or another separate lawsuit for things that they've done wrong. So yeah, I always think it's best for people to not let feelings get involved, and to try to settle things if possible.
That's so unfortunate what you said about lawyers and how they operate. I know for me, the company that I work with, The CEO always talks about how he can't stand lawyers, and I think I'm starting to understand why. I don't have too much experience with them, but that's really something.
Well,
Uh,
it's all about billable hours, and it's funny that you said that about lawyers. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about evaluating someone's intentions. I've probably come across, over the past few years, maybe like 10 lawyers or so. And I would say that five of them were amazing, and five of them weren't. They were like, they probably lied to their clients. They were very greedy. They kept them in cases that they shouldn't. I know that this might sound weird, but I actually believe that women lawyers, they tend to be better than men.
Interesting.
Maybe it's because men are told, like, men inherently are like more aggressive and they want to get like more billable hours so that they can get promoted or make more money, or maybe men feel more pressure to maximize their income. But I I kind of get the feeling that, at least from my experience, that male lawyers are on average, like, they have a tendency to like kind of steer their client into making wrong decisions that prolong the lawsuit, and they also bill significantly more. That, not necessarily that their rate is more, because the male and the female lawyer, they might bill the same amount, but they might just bill more hours that they aren't truly working. Again, I know that's probably a little bit, um, like a little bit conspiratorial or whatever. But at the same time, that's just my experience. If I had to choose, like, all things being equal, I would go with someone who's less aggressive, and because I think
Yeah.
that the likelihood of spending less and settling is higher.
Nice. Very interesting. Um, I guess I would ask this as it relates to lawsuits. Uh, do you think that the way they're constructed is kind of unfair? And I'll go more in depth. The fact that anybody can sue anybody, like literally anybody, because to me it puts you in a position where, and me and Spencer were talking about this. We talked about this publicly too. It puts you in a position where anybody with money can ruin your life, and it's because of the way that the system is set up in terms of lawsuits. Do you think that itself needs some reform? Like, you shouldn't just be able to sue anybody for anything. What do you think?
Mm. Okay, I guess I'm a little bit conflicted. I feel that when I was sued, um, that I probably deserved it. Like, maybe not, because I feel like I was a little bit, like, I was in the wrong, and I received a good outcome because I had like a lot of information on the other people, and noticed that, like, I don't harbor ill will towards them. Like, I still have that information. I could release all of it. Like, much of it is in the public documents. Like, but I just, I chose not to do it, just to put it behind me. Um, I don't necessarily think that it's unfair, and the reason is that when I first started making videos, I probably could have been sued on like 50 or 60% of my videos, and I made a lot of mistakes. And it just so happened that one of them, really, it was like Warrior Trading. I really don't fault Raging Bull, because they had a prior relationship with Warrior Trading, and they just viewed me as like very weak and someone that they could bully at that time. So they kind of like piggybacked the Warrior Trading. So I feel like I deserved it, and Warrior Trading was just the one that decided to go after me. But I feel like I could have, I made mistakes previously, and where I could have gotten in trouble for that, I didn't. So, and that's kind of life. Like, sometimes you're lucky, and sometimes you're not. But when you're not lucky, I think it's incumbent upon you to respond in the most appropriate way, and not necessarily to like get angry, but just to make sure that people know that you're not, that you're fair, that you're willing to talk and resolve differences, but also that you're not someone who is going to be a target of frivolous lawsuits. Because for every frivolous lawsuit that's filed, there is an enormous risk to the plaintiff to file that case, but there isn't an enormous risk if the defendant cannot defend themselves. So, do I think it's fair? Okay, on the one hand, I'm not it is definitely true that you don't necessarily have a freedom of speech unless you're willing to pay for it and defend yourself. So if you're like a middle class individual, and you know, again, like please don't get upset with me for saying this. It's just like from my experience, it's almost like if you're a middle class person,
Yep.
and you don't have a ton of discretionary income, or you don't have a lot of money in the bank, or you don't have, you know, powerful friends who are attorneys and very well connected to help you, yeah, it's not fair. Yeah, because then in that case, like they can go after you, and even if you're 100% right, you won't even get to trial before you're just absolutely getting destroyed, or you simply tap out because you're out of funds. One of my friends, he actually has a YouTube channel too, and I'm not going to disclose it for obvious reasons because he told me in confidence. But he was sued of, and he told me this he told me this a few weeks ago. But he was sued, and then he had to file bankruptcy, just because he couldn't defend himself. And I don't believe he did anything wrong. So I don't think it's fair. But at the same time, I don't think life is fair. I think that,
Yeah.
I mean, my son was born with autism, and like, you know, like that was so incredibly stressful for all of us. And thankfully, he's like doing better now. But it's like, just life is not fair. Like you can walk out and you can get hit by a car. But if you are in a situation where, where if you're sued and you are able to defend yourself, I think that if you defend yourself well, then no one's going to mess with you. Now that doesn't give you that doesn't give you the ability to say whatever you want,
Yeah.
you know, because if you're in the wrong, then you can get sued. But it does prevent you from being a victim of frivolous lawsuits, which I believe are probably about 50% of the cases that are filed, that they are frivolous.
Yeah. So then I would ask you this then. How do you think some of the people who are not as rich as CoffeeZilla, so let's put us all in the same category. Let's take me, Strongman Personal Finance, and Scott Schaefer. We all essentially kind of do the same thing. How do people like us who don't have as much money as CoffeeZilla and as much support, how would we take the steps to defend ourselves in the event of a lawsuit? Obviously, we all have insurance. Strongman's in the middle of getting it. Me and Scott already have it. What can we do besides the lawsuit insurance, which you already kind of debunked? But
Well,
yeah, just what do you
I
think?
don't know if I debunked it. I was just kind of like providing my opinion. I'm actually like super curious to see, and I guess it depends on like a case by case basis. Like, I hope that none of you guys are going to end up getting sued. But it's just kind of like the problem with the insurance is that it removes your power, where you kind of like place the power in the attorney, which is appointed and paid for by the insurance agency, and their goal is to minimize payouts and minimize costs. So maybe you have a great lawyer who really is excited about your case and wants to show that you're you know, that you're in the right, but maybe you might receive a lawyer who doesn't care, who has an existing relationship with the insurance company and just wants to settle the case as quickly as possible, and who's not going to file motions, who's not going to file, you know, motion to strike or motion to dismiss because they don't want to run up the expenses, or maybe they're not going to issue subpoenas or depositions, or they're not going to engage in discovery, which is really like your huge weapon as a defendant. And that stuff's super expensive because then it oftentimes leads to like motion to compels and other hearings, maybe like motion for sanctions, etc. So I think especially CoffeeZilla, he's so large right now, and he has such goodwill. I don't think he needs insurance. You know, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong. You know, he has like an LLC, etc. Okay, so to answer your question directly, I think that it's really important the people that you go after. You know, I've seen like a few of your videos like about Spencer, and then I like read some of the comments. Like, I don't. He made a mistake, but he's not a bad
hold
person.
on, your audio. We're having audio issue.
So regarding how to mitigate the risk of getting sued, I'm always available, and you know, one of the reasons why I reached out to you is that I really like your content, and I also like Strongman's content. I've never commented on any of his videos because I think and he's not like so negative about like course creators, but I don't want to write a comment and then be hit with like tons of negativity just because I sell a course. So everyone automatically assumes that I'm a bad person or I'm like a grifter, you know?
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into what one of the main points. I think that it's really important to not be vindictive, as you know, either yourself or Strongman or Scott Schaefer, and don't be mean. And additionally, I think it's very important to look at people and evaluate them for their intentions. Like making videos about about like Spencer, I don't, that's probably not something that I would do, because it's kind of like kicking someone when they're down, when I don't believe he has bad intentions. Like I just think that he made a mistake. But then there are like
Yeah.
other people.
And I did apologize to Spencer for that, because I acknowledge that. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, he's down on his luck. And I can imagine how I was when I was down on my luck when I was sued. And if my friends looked at me and said, hey, well, you screwed up, so we're just going to like make fun of you, then I would be much worse off. It would like really like, it would have hurt my life negatively. And so, I think really only making videos on the people where you think it's like so egregious, right? Because everybody makes mistakes. And even like the most perfect person is going to have things that they're not proud of. So going after people who you believe have bad intentions. The other thing is reach out to your friends. So I'm always available to you. I've never spoken with Strongman, but I definitely respect him. He's like he went through like 3 levels of the CFA in order to get like to become a chartered financial analyst, I believe. Like
he's an accountant. Yeah, CPA. Yep. CPA. Yep.
So yeah, and like I do agree with his message, where I believe that the majority of the people should invest in ETFs. Now, whether it's like international, like VTI versus like VT or VU, I mean, that's up for debate. But I do agree with him, and I believe he has good intentions. But I think like go after the people who are like the worst, like the worst offenders. Don't be mean. Additionally, make sure that you research your claims. And if you come across like some like random article, I wouldn't necessarily take that as fact, because as you've seen like with CoffeeZilla, like people sometimes will make things up against him in order to try to like get back at him on like online, and it's just not legitimate. So just because you see something online, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true, and you should verify that, because if you say that again and it happens to not be true, then you might potentially be liable. Another thing which is really important is, if you're not sure about something but you believe it to be true, instead just say in my opinion, or say allegedly. It's so important, it's so vital, because opinions are protected constitutionally. So you can't, now obviously you can always be sued for saying something that somebody doesn't like, because like you said earlier, and it's totally true, anyone can sue anyone. But if you say in my opinion, this person like has bad intentions, and they like sponsored this product which then like screwed up, took advantage of their audience, they're front running their audience, you can say in my opinion, but there has to be like some basis behind that. You can't have like a personal vendetta against someone and like make like a derogatory video and then say, oh, I said it's my opinion, because the judge is going to see through that. But if you have good intentions in your video and it's well researched, and the things that you're not certain about, then you just say like, hey, in my opinion or allegedly, then it's fine. Because I wouldn't be scared of getting sued, because if you get sued and it's a frivolous case and you defend yourself well, then no one's going to mess with you anymore. Because these people who file frivolous lawsuits, they only do it because they want to shut you up. They want you to remove the content, and they want you to sign a permanent injunction to make sure that you can't speak about them in the future. So I wouldn't necessarily be concerned. Like I said, like I'm always available, and I think that CoffeeZilla is at a point where he has so much goodwill where he's fine. Nothing, like I don't think he has anything to worry about. But just continue doing what you're doing. Maybe when you feel that you're like getting close to stepping on that line, or maybe you potentially like have stepped over, then just kind of reel yourself back a little bit. Like instead of, saying something where you get caught up in the heat of the moment, because, we're talking, we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We can say something that we don't necessarily mean at that moment, or maybe we phrased it in a way which is improper. Then you can go back and cut that part out. Or you can issue like an apology, like you did to Spencer with your
Yep.
community post. I think just by taking accountability and having the self-awareness that you're not perfect and the other person isn't like a bad person, or you're not a victim and it's always like a little bit in the middle. I think that by doing that and just having some compassion towards the other side, even if you might not like them, that actually prevents you from being in these situations.
Nice. What do you think about the fake guru space in particular? Obviously, CoffeeZilla is CoffeeZilla. Uh, Spencer, from what I understand, seems to be pivoting after the lawsuit. His content has changed. I know for me, Strawman and Scott, I think we're going to continue to do it. But what do you think about the longevity of our channels and just kind of what we do with the whole talking about fake gurus and
Yeah.
scams and bad actors in the finance space?
I think the YouTube algorithm loves it. I think if it's something that you enjoy, which I think you're doing an amazing service to the YouTube community, then I think that it's great. One of the reasons why I stopped doing it is because, I'm kind of conflicted. So if I make a video on someone, and even if I'm right, and someone writes in the comments, "Oh, you're just trying to sell your course," or something like that, but they don't like, I have other traders who are quote unquote like competitors on my channel all the time, because the pie is big enough for all of us. Like, I don't care about if I give up like a few $1,000s to this person. Like, if I can't help someone, then I want to endorse somebody else who I believe has a great product, even if it costs me a little bit of money. So what? Like in the long run, that money's not going to mean anything to me. Like, it doesn't matter. But for me, when I made the videos, sometimes I would receive like a lot of like negative comments and stuff. Maybe a lot of those comments were fake by like, bots or things like that. But I think if you have a great audience, and it sounds like you have a very supportive audience, I think that helps significantly. The YouTube algorithm definitely rewards you for making these type of videos and this type of content. So I think that you'll be rewarded with channel growth and also with money. And as I said with Steven, like, you're doing good work. You're investing your time. You're putting in a tremendous amount of effort. You're educating people. You're also entertaining them. You deserve to make money. Money's not a bad thing. I think the issue that many people have with quote unquote grifters is, are they taking advantage with bad intentions of like their followers? Like, they're telling them one thing, but then like they're stealing from them, like, when nobody's looking. Like, that's bad. But making a lot of money by educating people, it's no different than how things are in the real world, right? Like, you go to college, you get ripped off for like $65,000, $70,000, but nobody really says that, like, college is like the ultimate grift, and you sacrifice 4 years of your life. So I think that as long as you enjoy it, you're passionate about it, your community likes it. I think as long as you go after the people who you believe and you perceive are like doing the most harm to the community, and I also think as long as you don't step over that line, because you can't control whether you get sued or not, but you can control based upon your actions whether the lawsuit is frivolous or whether it has merit. Whether it's frivolous or whether it has merit is up to you based upon your prior behavior and the content that you put out. And if someone sues you in a frivolous lawsuit, then that's actually an opportunity for you to defend yourself, to make sure that nobody sues you again. But I really view you guys as almost like the police and like, the cops of like of YouTube. And I think that you're doing an amazing service, like an incredible service. Steven is a great guy. I spoke to him a few times. I think the last time I spoke to him was like 3 years ago. He's just an incredibly intelligent, great person. And he adds a lot of value. And I think that you guys add a tremendous amount of value as well.
Yeah.
but yeah, like I said, I think you guys are like the police of the internet, and I support you guys. I think you guys do great work. I would just make sure that the people that you go after truly have bad intent. That when you think you've stepped on that line or stepped over the line, that you cut that part out. You know, post edit, post production, or you issue an apology. Make sure that you say like allegedly or in my opinion. You're always welcome to reach out to me. And you know, if you have a disagreement with someone, then try to speak with them directly. And you know, I know that Kevin kind of has a reputation as someone who will reach out to someone, try to like befriend them to kind of like neutralize them. You know,
Yes.
like so for that, you don't want to get played. You know, but obviously, like you guys are smart enough to know like what people's true intentions are. It always comes down to like what are their intentions. So if you believe that they're being honest and you're able and you see a change where they stop doing the behavior that you were critical of, then I think that that person is worthy of some adulation and worthy of like being thought of like in a different light, you know, and worthy of some praise.